What's up YouTube? My name is Ruff and today I want to go over 3 ways to make your VST strings sound more realistic. So diving right in, I have 2 tracks loaded up with 2 different string sounds. I have Spitfire Audio Lab strings and then I have Spitfire Audio BBC strings. And the first tip to make your VST strings more realistic is velocity and timing. So if I open up this MIDI clip here, we just have a C major triad and all the velocities are the same and it sounds like this. Pretty realistic, but we can do more. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up the velocity tab. And what velocity is essentially how hard a note is played. So all of these notes are being played at the same velocity, which isn't realistic, because if you think about a real violin player, they're not pressing each string down with the same amount of intensity, and they're not striking the bow at the same amount of intensity and velocity every time either. So we can replicate that as best we can inside of our DAW. So I'm gonna just click this top G note, and I'm gonna bring the velocity down to 64. I'm gonna bring this E up to 102. I'm gonna bring this C down to 82, and I'm gonna bring this bottom one down to 92. So now each note's being played at a slightly different velocity, and it sounds like this. So this E note here is being pretty emphasized since it has the most velocity, which is fine because you want it to be as random as possible. But we can go a step further within by switching up the timing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all of these and I'm gonna make them a little bit shorter, like so. And then I'm just gonna right click and I'm gonna make the grid the widest. So that way it doesn't lock onto anything. And I'm just gonna adjust each note individually to make them slightly off time from each other. Because if you think about a real violin player, they're not playing all the notes at the same time either. It's gonna be slightly off. So I'm just gonna literally do it at random. I'm gonna take this top one, I'm gonna move it here. I'm gonna move this E there. I'm gonna move this C there. And I'm gonna move this bottom one there. That's it. So it's just all slightly off, and then we're gonna bring them all to the end, like that. So now the second way to make your strings more realistic is to layer them and then set them offset with timing and delay even more. So here's the second string group. And if I solo both at the same time, we're gonna potentially get some phasing issues. So the first thing I wanna do is I want this second string, the velocity of these notes to be different from the other one. So I'm gonna select all, and I'm gonna bring this to about there, and I'm gonna hit randomize. Now we've randomized the velocity on the second string track, so it's not the exact same as the first one, but that's still not gonna be enough. So I'm gonna actually open up the MIDI clip again, and I'm gonna shift these down an octave by hitting shift and the down arrow. So now we have this. But let's take it even a step further, because if you think about if you have multiple violin players in a real orchestra, they're not going to all be exactly playing the exact thing at the same time. They're going to be a little bit off from each other. So I'm going to go to this delay tab here, and I'm going to set the first one to 3 milliseconds ahead, and I'm going to set the second one to -2 behind. So they're going to be a little bit off from each other, which is going to take out some of those phasing issues, as well as make it sound more realistic. So now we have this. Now let's take it one step further, the final step, which is going to be the stereo field. So I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to hit select split stereo pan mode on both of them. And I'm going to send this top one slightly to the left here and this bottom one slightly to the right. Now to differentiate them from each other even more, I'm going to open up a stock Ableton overdrive. I'm going to put it here and I'm going to set the dry wet to about 4%. And now we have a nice stereo image, split out wide. The bottom one's a little bit distorted, so it's gonna take out any potential phasing issues that are still left over after all of this. We have different velocities, different timings, and a slight delay from each other, and that's gonna create very realistic VST strings that you can keep going with this method by, stacking 2 more in an even higher octave, splitting them out wide, taking the timing and velocity and setting them offset from each other. So there's a lot of ways you can expand upon this, but this is just the basics. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you next time. Peace.